everyone, thanks for joining me. I'm still relatively new to this whole video thing on YouTube, so I appreciate it if you're watching and listening, because I thought I'd give the voiceover thing a try. These are the golden high flow acrylics, which I've had for a while, and I'm still figuring out everything that they can do. I thought they might work as I wanted to sort of try a watercolor effect on watercolor paper. I've used it on mixed media paper. It doesn't flow very well. It kind of just gets sucked into the paper. So I thought watercolor paper might work a little bit better. I started trying a wet on wet technique, and it did help the paint flow some more. Not like watercolor does, but still, a lot of fun, and I was getting sort of the desired effect that I wanted to here, still playing around. I did it relatively fast, and I think if I had slowed down a little bit, it would have turned out a little bit better, and it would have helped to pre-mix that green color and quite a bit of it beforehand, because it was hard to get that consistent same green color every time. So I would highly recommend doing that. I think I was a little bit afraid too, because the product is a little bit pricey, and I'm always worried about using too much of it and running out of it. But I mean, I love the product. It's so vibrant. The colors are so great, and I'm just so vivid. I mean, they're so much fun to work with, all these great bright colors. But it, with my limited water skills, because I'm still a beginner, I was trying to achieve what I have been achieving with watercolors, and it was not too bad, but didn't exactly do what I thought it would do, but it's still, it was still nice. Adding some white here on the frog, which didn't really turn out to be white. It was kind of a gray color, but it was, I ended up using it with another color to add some shadows to the picture. Doing the wet on wet technique again with the brown. I believe it was, I think it's my burnt sienna. And then I used burnt umber, I believe, afterwards. All the colors are listed in the card at the beginning. So I just kept layering and layering until I got that piece of wood to look like a piece of wood, and it was darker, because in the photo it's quite a dark piece of wood. So just adding some fine details here with my smaller brush, and just layering and adding and layering and adding. And in the end, I did like the way it turned out. You can see having gloves on is really handy, because this stuff, I find it is hard to get it off your hands. So having gloves or some kind of cream to protect your hands, I highly recommend it. So I'm just layering and trying to make it look like wood, adding quite a bit of dark color here. I think that might have been the brown mixed with a little bit of black to really darken it up. You just got to play around in whatever colors and whatever effect you like. Just go with it. Really nice bright red for his eyes. And I was trying to sort of lighten it up a bit so I could add the orangey yellow detail that's right around the pupil. Didn't quite get it, but I was fairly happy with it. Now adding the yellow, Hansa yellow medium, I believe, to the frog, and trying to tone down some areas of the orange just for some shading and detail. And just handy to have a paper towel on, to just sort of, if it's too much color, you can dab it off a little bit. For the big area of the background, I go back to the wet on wet technique so that the paint just moves around a little bit better. Again, it would have been handy to have mixed the color ahead of time so that I had enough of it and I didn't have to keep trying to mix it and make that same blue. But in the end, I ended up having a lighter version of the blue over on the right hand side, and then darkening it up near the back of him. Because again, in the reference photo, it's quite dark. So I'm just adding in some more little details on him. It was a darker green I managed to make, and the shadowing here, like I said before, with the white. And just giving him some depth and dimension and details. It's really, at this point, I'm going way too fast. And if I just slowed down a little bit, but whatever, live and learn. So just adding in some more details, trying to pop that white there around his eyes. In the end, and I didn't record this part, I ended up using my Molotow paint pens. And I'm sorry, I think I forgot to put that in the supply list, but it'll be in the supply list on my details card. I love using those paint pens as a final detail. My husband said I made it a little bit too squiggly, and I should have not put as many squiggles in there. But like I said, I was moving fast because my plan was to sort of compare this, the high flow acrylics on watercolor, to using watercolor on a mixed media pad, which I did do, and it was very unsuccessful, and that one's just going to stay in my journal and nobody's going to see that. Whereas this guy, by the end, after I sort of added in the little details and worked them out a little bit more, I was fairly happy with it, and sort of looking at him a couple of days later, then I was even more happy. Sometimes you need those few days. So here's the final product with all the pens and the paint pens, adding a little bit of detail, a little bit too squiggly, like I said. But I'm pretty happy with how my little frog turned out. So thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe.